Doukas, Latinized as Ducas, from the Latin tile dux, is the name of a Byzantine Greek noble family, whose branches provided several notable generals and rulers to the Byzantine Empire in the 9th–11th centuries. A maternally-descended line, the Komnenodoukai, founded the Despotate of Epirus in the 13th century, with another branch ruling over Thessaly. After the 12th century, the name Doukas and other variants proliferated across the Byzantine world, and were sometimes presented as signifying a direct genealogical relationship with the original family of the later branch based in the Despotate of Epirus. The continuity of descent amongst the various branches of the original Middle Byzantine family is not clear, and historians generally recognize several distinct groups of Doukai based on their occurrence in the contemporary sources. According to Demetrios, who compiled the only overview work on the bearers of the Ducas name, in view of this lack of genealogical continuity, it would be a mistake to view the groups of people designated by the cognomen of Ducas as forming one large family. History. Origins. Nothing is known for certain about the family's origin. Later tradition, mentioned by the historian Nikephoros Bryannios, held that they descended from a cousin of the Roman Emperor Constantine I, who had migrated to Constantinople in the 4th century and allegedly became the city's governor with the title of Du. This tradition is, however, evidently an invention meant to glorify the family, at the time the empire's ruling dynasty, by 11th century court chroniclers. In fact, it is more likely that the surname derives from the relatively common military rank of Du. Nothing is known about the family's origin. Several authors have raised the possibility of an Armenian descent, but it is almost certain that the Doukai were in fact native-born Greek speakers, probably from Paphlagonia in north-central Anatolia, where their estates were located. Doukai of the early 10th century. The first representative of the family appears in the mid-9th century, during the regency of Empress Theodora, when he was sent to forcibly convert the Paulicians to Orthodoxy. He is only known as the son of Du, although Skylitzes interpolates the name of Andronikos, probably in confusion with Andronikos Doukas. This name is also used by some modern sources, e.g., in the prosopography der Mittelbyzantinischen Zeit. The first branch of the family to achieve prominence was in the early 10th century, with Andronikos Doukas and his son Constantine Ducas. Both were senior generals during the reign of Emperor Leo VI the Wise. In circa 904, Andronikos engaged in an unsuccessful rebellion and was forced to flee to Baghdad, where he was killed in circa 910. Constantine managed to escape, and was restored to high office, becoming domestic of the schools. He was killed, however, along with his son Gregory and nephew Michael, in an unsuccessful coup in June 913. These deaths, along with the castration and exile of Constantine's younger son Stephen and the death of Nicholas Doukas at the Battle of Katasirtai in 917, marked the end of the first group of Doukai recorded in Byzantine sources. It is likely, as the 12th century historian Zonaras records, that the Doukai line died out, and that the later bearers of the name were descendants through the female line only. Lidwa Doukai under Basil II. Towards the end of the 10th century, there appeared a second family, sometimes known as Lidwa. Its members were Andronikos Doulidos and his sons, Christopher and Bardas, the latter known with the sobriquet Mongos. It is unclear whether the Du in Andronikos's name is a surname or a military rank. Some scholars consider them as belonging to the Doukas clan, although the exact relation, if any, with the earlier Doukai is impossible to ascertain. The family was involved in the 976–979 rebellion of Bardes Scleros against Emperor Basil II, but the sons were later pardoned and resumed their careers. Bardes the Mongos is attested as late as 1017, when he led a military expedition against the Khazars. Doukas imperial dynasty, the third group of the family, the Doukai of the 11th century, was the more numerous and distinguished one, providing several generals, governors, and founding the Doukai dynasty, which ruled Byzantium from 1059 to 1081. These Doukai seem to have come from Paphlagonia, and were exceedingly wealthy, possessing extensive estates in Anatolia. Again, the relationship of this group with the Doukai of the 9th and 10th centuries is unclear. The contemporary writers Michael Solos and Nicholas Callicles affirm such a relationship, but Zonaras openly questioned it. The most famous members of this group were the dynasty's founder, Emperor Constantine X, Doukas, his brother John Doukas, Kate Pano, and later Caesar. Constantine's son Michael VII Doukas, Michael's younger brothers, Constantios and Andronikos Doukas, Michael's son and co-emperor Constantine Doukas, and John's son, the general Andronikos Doukas. During this period, the family intermarried with other aristocratic clans. Before becoming emperor, Constantine X had married into the powerful de Larsenoi family, and took as a second wife Eudokia Macrembolishisa, niece of the patriarch Michael Kerularios. Further dynastic matches were made with the clans of the Anatolian military aristocracy, including the Paleologoi and the Paganitai. The most important connection, however, was to the Komnenodoukai. In 1077, Alexios Komnenos, then a general and later emperor, married Irene Doukaina, the great niece of Constantine X. Thereafter, the family name Komnenodoukas was often used. This marriage alliance crucial for Alexius's own rise to the purple. His marriage to a Doukaina made him senior to his elder brother Isaac, and it was Doukai financial and political support that largely facilitated the successful and bloodless coup that brought him to the throne. Under the Komnenodoukai, their association with the Komnenodoukai helped ensure the continued prominence and prestige of the Doukas name at the apex of the Byzantine aristocracy. Into the Komnenian period, and the presence of the family's members amongst the higher officials of the Byzantine state. During the reign of Alexios I, the Doukai continued to play an important role. Constantine Doukas was recognized as heir apparent and affianced to Anna Komnena and Irene Doukaina's brothers. The protostrator Michael Doukas and the Megasdu John Doukas were among the most prominent military leaders of the late 11th century. During the 12th century, the prestige of the Doukas name meant that it was often taken as a second surname by members of other families, even if remotely linked to the actual Doukai, who become relatively obscure after the turn of the century. It is hence impossible to clearly distinguish the numerous holders of the name or to discern their exact relationship with the 11th century Doukai dynasty. The actual bloodline of Constantine X died out probably before 1100, and the last known descendants of his brother, the Caesar John, lived in the first half of the 12th century. The majority of the 12th century bearers of the name were therefore most likely members of other families, linked through marriage with the Doukai, who chose to emphasize this relationship due to the prestige the name conferred. Later branches, in this way, mingled with other noble families or adopted de novo even by humble families unrelated to the original lineage. The Doukas name survived into the last centuries of the Byzantine Empire. A prominent example of the late Byzantine period were the Komnenodoukai of the Despotate of Epirus in northwestern Greece, founded by Michael I Komnenos-Doukas and other descendants of John Doukas, a grandson of Alexios I Komnenos and Irene Doukaina. For them the surname Ducas was used by the Greek, and later Serbian, rulers of Epirus and Thessaly until the 15th century. Other examples include John III Doukas Vatatzes, Nicene emperor, and his relatives, the late Byzantine historian Doukas, and the Megas Papias Demetrios Doukas Kabaslas in the mid-14th century. The name spread far and wide across the Greek-speaking world, and remains fairly common to this day. Among the more notable bearers of the Doukas name in the post-Byzantine period were the 16th-century Cretan scholar Demetrius Ducas, the 17th-century rulers of Moldavia George Ducas and Constantine Ducas of the 19th-century scholar and educationalist Neophytos Doukas. Several variations also developed, such as Doukas, Doukopoulos, Doukatos, Macrodoukas and Makridoukas, etc. Other variants like Doukaitsa Doukidis seem to derive not from the surname, but from a locality and a first name, Doukas, respectively.